my fellow origami enthusiasts. This is Caitlin with OrigamiTherapy, and I wanted to talk real quick about New Year's resolutions. So today, while I'm filming this, it is New Year's Eve, and I know now's the time that we all start thinking about all the new things that we want to do come January 1st. You know, new year, new me. But on Instagram, I shared my thoughts on setting small goals and waiting until March 1st that we can really come up with a plan. So I know with the holidays just passing, and especially this year with all this COVID stuff going on, we've had a lot of time to think about what changes we want to make in our lives. However, starting this on the 1st doesn't always give us enough time to actually make a good plan, and we end up quitting. So I read in an article that 80% of New Year's resolutions are dropped by mid-February. So instead, I'm suggesting that we try a different kind of New Year's resolution this year, which is to learn a new skill and to slowly build up some positive thoughts, some thoughts of gratefulness, and just hopefully slowly change our way of looking at life. So I'm sure a lot of people know about the 1,000 crayons. I have my 1,000 crayons sitting here next to me that I made when I was in undergrad. But a lot of people have heard this. The story about Sadako is really, really interesting. And we always get like a partial story. And in that story, she was sick from radiation from the bombs being dropped on Japan, and she in the hospital started to fold paper cranes, and with that she was wishing to become healthy again. And over time, as she folded the cranes, her wish started changing towards world peace. In the traditional way the story is, or I should say the most commonly known way that the story is told, she passed before she's able to finish her 1,000 crayons, but her family and friends finished the job for her. And so now the paper crane is a symbol of peace. Now, they've recently published this amazing book you can find on Amazon and I'm sure a bunch of other places, but this is the complete story, and it's written by her brother. And it really explains not just the crane piece, but who she was as a person. And it explains that she not only met her 1,000 crane goal, but exceeded it. So I just thought it was a really interesting real life story from somebody who actually knew her and loved her. So I highly recommend reading this. It's geared towards, I'd say, older children and young adults, but even at my ripe old age of 30 something, I really enjoyed it. So I hope everybody else gets a chance to enjoy it as well. And what I wanted to do was share how to make a paper crane, but more importantly, I want to share how we can use that therapeutically. I know that there's a million videos out there and a million different instructions on how to make a paper crane. So while I will include that in this video, today what I really wanted to talk about is how you can make that into a New Year's resolution to help you make some bigger changes. So the wonderful thing about making 1,000 paper cranes is we often feel like it's a huge task. But here's the deal. If you fold 3 cranes a day, every day, you'll be done before the next new year comes around. So using this video, using printed instructions, every day fold 3 cranes. And before we get down to the next New Year's Eve, you will have your own giant collection of 1,000 paper cranes. The other thing that I want you to think about is with each crane, making it not necessarily a wish, but making it something positive. So a few different things you could do is write down something positive, like an affirmation or something good that happened that day, something that you're grateful for, and writing it on the back side of the paper. And then when you fold it up, that positive thought is then saved in that crane. And if you want to further add to it, every time you make a crease, I want you to say that positive thing, whether it's in your head or out loud. So think about how many creases are in a crane. And if you say all of them, or if you say it every time you make all of those folds, you have just said something positive, like, I don't even know, at least 30 times, right? And if you do that 3 times every day, you're going to start saying a lot more positive things than you have been in the past. And you might even start saying more positive things than negative things. And our brains are so cool. The awesome thing called cognitive dissonance means that we're going to start thinking more positively, more frequently. We're going to start feeling better. So next up, I'm going to show you the video on how to make a crane. I'm also going to show you just a real quick way to string them up. And the different ways that you can make them look. I recommend doing 50 cranes per string. It makes it a little bit shorter than me, and I'm 5'7". And then you can hang them up like this, or you can string up double that and open their wings, and it'll be like this really beautiful, looks like all these birds in flight. You can do shorter amounts. You can leave them all in a bag if you want, but it's the process of making these. I'm a big fan of displaying them because you're putting a lot of time and effort into this and making a lot of positive changes. So being able to hang them up somewhere is going to be really nice too. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. If you use the standard 6-inch paper, you're going to get a big pile of cranes like this. If you use smaller paper, which I recommend you do if you're a little bit more on the intermediate level of folding cranes, but if you're new, don't go smaller than 6x6. And then what I like to do is I save them in a shoebox until I have 50, and then I string up all 50 at once. But you can string them up one at a time as you're making them, or you can save it till the very end and fold all 1,000 together. There's not really a lot of rules. This pile that I made when I was younger, I have random buttons and beads at the bottom that kind of hold it together. So you can see it's got like a little pony bead at the bottom. Now, when I make them fresh, what I like to use are teeny little jingle bells. And that way when this shifts, you're going to get this pretty little tinkly sound. So I think that's a lot of fun. But here we go. Happy New Year's. Good luck on your resolutions. And I really hope that you take this into consideration as one of your own New Year's resolutions. Thank you. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that the pattern that you want showing on your crane is facing down. And then you're going to take one corner and fold it to the opposite corner. And this is going to fold your piece of paper into a triangle. Crease it real good using your finger or a pen. Then you're going to fold this triangle in half by using the other two corners. I'm just going to make this smaller triangle that I like to refer to as a pita pocket. And this is why. So you see there's these two little pockets, and what you're going to do is stick your finger in one all the way up to the very point, and then you're going to rotate your finger so that that point goes up like a shark fin, and you're going to connect or push that point down to your center points and then crease it flat, and it turns that triangle into a square. Then you're going to flip it over, and that crease there is what used to be your triangle, and I like to use that as my indicator. So again, you're going to open up the pita pocket, stick your finger up to the point of the triangle, not this weird little shape. You're going to rotate like a shark fin, and then you're going to bring the point down to your center points, just like this. Perfect. Now one side is going to have all these little flaps, and you want to make sure that that side is pointing towards your body while you're folding. Now we're going to take that bottom diagonal crease and fold it in towards that center crease. Just the top layer, so edge to crease, and then we're going to fold that, crease it real good. I'm a big fan of really tight, sharp creases. And do the same thing on the other side. That bottom edge is going to come to your center crease and line up with your previous fold. And because origami is symmetrical, we're going to flip it over. And we're going to do the same thing. Bottom edge, center crease. One more time to make it even. So the shape you're about to get, everybody calls a kite, but I personally like to see it as an ice cream cone. Because what we're going to do is we're going to fold the ice cream part over the cone part using the top of those flaps as our guideline. Now this is one of the most important creases in the entire thing, so make sure you really crease it good. My fingernails are enough, but you might need to use a bone creaser, the edge of scissors, or a pen. And then I prefer to fold it back in the opposite direction to make a really, really distinct crease. It's so important to this process. You can see it easily flops back and forward like a little hinge. Now we're going to open up those creases or those folds we did before, like doors, and then we're going to take the bottom point, lift it all the way up using that big crease we just did as a hinge. It's going to look like a big old bird beak opening up. And then as you do that, the outside edges are going to come in naturally. You're going to help them do that or let them do that. You might have to fix the point a little bit so it stays on those lines and stays nice and sharp. But once you get everything lined up, you can fold it flat or press it flat and reinforce all those creases by getting them nice and firm. Again, origami is symmetrical, so we're going to flip it over and do it again. Same thing. We're going to open up those little flaps like doors, and we're going to use that big crease we did earlier as our hinge, and we're going to take the bottom point and bring it all the way up as far as it'll go, with that crease being the hinge. And fix up those points and then flatten it out. Ta-da! So you see those little dancing legs? Make sure those are pointing towards your body. That way you're doing it right side up. So similar to before, we're going to take that bottom diagonal edge and we're going to fold it in to the center line. So we're going to make the dancing legs skinnier dancing legs. The paper is going to start feeling really thick, so make sure you're creasing it good using your nail or another object to make sure it's nice and tight. We're going to do the same thing on the other edge. Bring it into that center line. This is where it can start making things really hard to get exactly right, so just do your best. It doesn't have to be perfect to look good. Flip it over and repeat. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have this shape, we're going to do what's called a book fold. And what you do for that is you're going to take one flap, I like to start on the right, and turn it just like a book page, right over that center line. Perfect. And flip it over and do the same. And what that's going to do is expose what was on the inside. You see it looks like a little dog with two little ears and long nose, and that's right there. That is that big crease we made earlier, and that's how you know where to fold the bottom half up over the top half. Flip it over and do it again. That big crease up into the top. Now we're going to do that book fold again by just taking what's like a page and flipping it over that center line. Turn the whole thing over and do it again. And that's going to put stuff back where it belongs. And what you're looking at there is the wing. So we're going to fold it down. You can do it up high, somewhere in the middle. I like to go all the way down to the bottom, but it is personal preference and there's no right or wrong here. Fold down both wings, and now we have two little towers here. I like to try and straighten them up a little bit because they look kind of sloppy, but you're going to notice that one looks way better than the other. So fix the one that's closer to being good. And the one that doesn't look so good, we're going to turn into the head. So you're going to open up that tower, flatten it out a little bit, and then you're going to fold down the point in between the two sides of the base. Then you fold it down, you're going to push in that center line, and it's going to start to make a crease, and then you can fold together the outer sides of that tower, and it's going to pin the head down in place. And then you can't even tell that that side looked wonky before. One last step is my personal preference because they look really rigid like this. They look like little soldier birds. So holding onto the bottom base there, pinching it, you can grab the top of the head and just rotate it out. You're not bending it, you're just rotating it. Same thing with the tail. and then they look much more relaxed. Another optional step is to puff up the bodies and make them more three-dimensional. And to do that, you're going to place your thumb and your index finger just right next to the body, and you're going to rotate your hands together. So you're going to rotate those pinkies together towards each other, and when you do that with a firm hold on the wings there, it's going to pop it open and make it a little bit more three-dimensional. And this is great if you're only going to make one or two, or you can always string them up like that as well. Ta-da! Now we can string them up. You're going to need your cranes, some string. I like to use a little bell, but any sort of stopper like a bead, and a needle. I like the metal needles, but if you're doing this with kids, a big plastic needle is going to work just as well. So the first step is to string your bead, your button, or your bell with your string and just tie a knot. Doesn't have to be pretty. You can leave the little tail at the end if you want, or if you're a little bit neurotic like me, you can use some scissors and just cut it off and trim it. Not great scissors. And then you're going to string the other end into your needle hook. Please ignore my challenges here. Now I'm using a short string because I'm only stringing up 3 cranes to show you how to do it. If you're going to do a full string, I would recommend an arm's length if you're going to do about 50, but you can obviously shorten the string. Now in order to do this, you see at the bottom there's a teeny little hole where all the pieces come together. You're going to stick the needle in there and you're just going to push it straight up. And if you keep it nice and straight, it's going to pop right out through the point of the crane's back, and you can pull it through and slide them all the way down to your stopper. And you're going to repeat that with however many cranes you have, whether it's 3 cranes, 10 cranes, 50 cranes, 100 cranes, or all 1,000 cranes. And why I like having them closed is they just nestle in each other like that. Perfect. Just pop right on top of each other. Just pull it right out, and you can nestle it right in between the wings of the one below it. And that's how they look on the ones that I showed you, the ones that I displayed. So start the bird base just like you did before. I'm fast forwarding through this. I'm going to all the way through to those dancing legs. But instead of making those legs skinny, you're going to switch right to the book fold. And you're going to fold that bottom half up to the top using that same really big crease that we did when it looked like an ice cream cone. We're going to book fold it back to where it was. And then we're going to fold down the wings at a diagonal. It's not super important what angle it is, just at a diagonal. And then when you fold down the second one, just line it up with the first one, and that way you know it'll be symmetrical. Similar to before, we're going to just rotate the towers out. You can see how it bubbles up there, so I rotate it out and then press it flat to hold it in place. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. It's going to bubble, so I just press it flat. And then you're going to turn one into the head, just like we did before. So opening up the tower, pushing the top half, the point in between the two sides of the tower, and then smushing it closed. Now, I did this wrong, but I decided to keep it in here because I think it's important for us to know that sometimes we make mistakes, even the quote-unquote experts. So kind of works, but just isn't quite doing what I was hoping it would do. So I'm going to pop the head back up, and I'm going to fold down the other side. Look at, you can barely see the crease, so we're okay. And then I'm going to give it a try. So you're going to hold the base underneath the head, pull on the back of the tail straight back. You're not bending it or folding it, just pull it straight backwards, and his little wings flap. And this is perfect for kids. So enjoy. Happy origamiing.